This creature is a force more powerful than evil. Its desire is to consume all life on Earth.
We've obviously seen vampire stories before, but somehow you've managed to create something that feels really original and unique. What inspired you to want to, tell the tale of Nosferatu?
Well, I saw the Murnau film when I was 9, and I was obsessed with it. Max Schreck's performance, the haunting atmosphere, and the thing that kind of stayed with me as an adult, but hit me then, was that it was just a simple fairy tale. Bram Stoker's book has a lot of stuff, and this had an elegance to it and an enigma to it. And then in high school, I did a high school play of it. Artistic director of a local theater saw it and invited me to do a more professional version of it at his theater. So that cemented the fact that I wanted to be a director. And about 10 years ago, I started to work on this screenplay. And it hit me that if the female protagonist is the central protagonist, you have the opportunity to potentially make something that's more emotionally and psychologically complex rather than just an adventure story about a real estate agent.
And Chris, for you, as a director, what do you hope for from a producer? What did you want to be for Robert?
I wanted to be supportive. We started our independent film company 10 years ago because I wanted to support directors who make different kind of films that I do, and also to protect them from the studio. Because for me as a producer, I've had so many producers who were such, for lack of a better word, weasels.
That's a nice word.
Were not protecting me as a director, and I felt that every director I worked with, if I respected their vision, I wanted to be a barrier between them and the studio. And as a result of that, we had a studio, Focus Features, that was very supportive. So I didn't have to do that. I just actually had to essentially adhere to what Rob wanted to do and make sure we protected every aspect of his vision.
I want to talk to the actors about what drew them to the project. And Lily Rose, as he was saying, this is the first time I can recall seeing a vampire story from the female perspective. That had to be exciting when you saw that or read that.
So much that was so exciting to me about this. And, I think it's rare to see a character be so rich and so nourished already on the page. And reading the script for the first time, there was just already so much there, and it's a beautiful place to build from. Not only does it offer a new perspective that's very refreshing, but it actually serves the whole story, not just the female protagonist. It allows the story to be deepened so much by the complexities of this character and everything that she is going through.
And Willem, this is your third collaboration with Robert, and he really seems to enjoy putting you through a tough time. I don't know if he called you up and said, "Got another one for you."
The first thing I thought when I read it was, this is the role Rob would play if he was an actor in this movie. Yes, just because of the writing and the interests of the character and all that. Rob is an actor's dream, really. He creates a world that really tells you what to do. And then the research he gives you is so rich that it really has a profound effect on your imagination, and it's a real trigger.
And Emma, what attracted you to this role and specifically the project overall?
I think, like Willem said, I realise now why Rob calls and actors come running. I was very much a fan of everything Rob has done. The way that Rob writes so descriptively, these just incredibly beautiful, eloquent pictures just spring off the page, and there's so much historical accuracy, and you can really tell that depth of research and passion for these periods of time that Rob has. When I watch Rob's films, I really feel like you can tell that he gets the best out of actors. I feel like I really grew as an actor. It forced me to, break some habits, and in a really good way.
I'm so curious because your whole ensemble is fantastic, which is something that honestly that applies to all of your movies. And for lack of a better word, there's such great chemistry between the cast. Did that sort of develop naturally? Did you have time to rehearse?
For most of the cast, there was 2 weeks of rehearsal ahead of time. We do these long, unbroken takes. We have to rehearse a lot. And sometimes during lighting setups, we'd be rehearsing the blocking again, in the green room, and Willem's relying on Aaron, and Aaron's relying on Lily, and Lily's relying on Emma, and everyone's relying on the focus puller, and the camera operator, and the dolly pusher, and the carpenters who have to move walls in the middle of a take and put them back again as the camera goes through, and it creates like a very like engaged and focused environment, but also a very collaborative environment where everybody feels like they are part of making the movie and making that scene and that moment happen.
Jarin, you've also worked with Robert on several projects. When did he start talking to you first about the idea about Nosferatu? In addition to shooting on 35mm film, what appealed to you about this?
I mean, Nosferatu came about when it was, we're talking 2016 or earlier, maybe. So, yeah, a lot of times I'll have a lookbook before I'll have a script, and so we get to I get to ruminate before I even know what I'm gonna read, which is great, which also is kind of a lens through which to see my first reading, which is very helpful.
The film looks amazing. Were there any particular influences the two of you discussed from the start, or that was in that lookbook?
In as much as the movie is a horror movie, it also is like, a gothic romance. The visual references, both in paintings and in illustration, but there was also plenty literary references, obviously for myself in the writing, for the cast. But I had Jarin and Craig Lathrop, the production designer, read The Fall of the House of Usher again. There is no better description of gothic atmosphere than the first pages of that story. Practically everything you see, we built, and obviously the backlot of the city. It was a lot.
I'm curious for the actors, how much does it help to be on these sets and to put on those amazing costumes and that makeup really help you, lock in those characters?
Rob and Jarin and Craig and, everybody who's building this world out physically cares so much that for it to be, rich with life. And as an actor, it's a huge gift because there's like no pretending. You really feel like you're entering a world, and everything about the atmosphere lends itself to that as well. It brings you back to like a real purity of play, I feel like, as an actor, because there's so much less to think about. There's a very precise way that everything is going to happen, except for the internal life that you're feeding it with. And of course, Rob has a direction that he wants for that as well, which is wonderful. But it really, I found that this way of working brings you so close to yourself because every single other thing is structured and kind of decided for you. And so it's kind of beautiful because it leaves you kind of really alone with your feelings in a way, which is very cool.
Everything on the set has a purpose. Nothing there for a show to say, hey, remember, this is a period piece. It's practical. You're rooted in some kind of action, and everything has kind of an origin, and it's there for a reason. The more detailed it is, the more precise you are in your impulses, because you're not stepping out and always translating it from your modern head to a period head. You're not even thinking about that. You're there, and that really helps.
And I hope that the accumulation of all these details creates an atmosphere that pulls the audience in, and they can believe in the period world because it has been so researched and articulated with so much detail. And the more, if you can believe in that world and the world and where these people are thinking in different ways because of their period, then hopefully you can also believe in something like a vampire existing.
Emma, you and Willem, I know, have big theater backgrounds. Was this at all similar to that, with these sets flying in and out?
Interestingly, not so much with the sets, but you definitely felt it in the feeling of ensemble.
Yeah.
That was sort of garnered, especially with the rehearsal period and what was happening in the rehearsal room because of these long shots, and it kind of removes any ego because there's no coverage, and as Lily says, everyone's sort of delving really deep into their internal life because everything's done for you. You know exactly where to go and what to do, and it's all about action. And it's an amazing equalizer and a really balanced room because you're all there to serve each other and the action that's been plotted out. It's an incredible experience.
I just want to ask the producers, because, as I said, we've seen vampire stories before, and specifically Nosferatu has really stood the test of time. What do you think is sort of the secret to the enduring appeal of this story?
I think Rob said it best. It's not really, people perceive it as a horror film, but it's so much more than that. It's so much more complex. It works on a deeply emotional level and a deeply romantic level, and that's why I find myself, I'm biased, but I find myself incredibly moved every time I see the film. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because of the fact that it's so much more than a horror film. It's a gothic romance, and I think people respond to that.
Yeah.
yes, there are horror tropes, there are jump scares, but it's really more about, this film is really more about trying to look at the darkness within ourselves. You make creative work to share what it is to be with other human beings, what it is to be human with other human beings. And so we're looking in the mirror and seeing, the things about ourselves that are hard to look at. As far as vampires themselves, I mean, sex and death.
Title of your next movie.
All of his movies.
Please, yeah. I do want to remind everyone, this is so perfect. It opens in theaters on Christmas Day. Take the whole family. What a gift. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you all.